What's up, buddy? Everybody, wow. What's up,
Hi.
everybody? We are back with another Who Are They Real Review. I, of course, am joined by the co-founder himself, Nick Molbach, and we're here to talk about Elvis.
I literally told Matt, like, because I see these movies with him all the time, it's just trying to figure out the time to be on the review isn't always helpful. I'm like, I'm going to be on this review today. I literally told him at work earlier, I'm like, I will be there to review this film.
Yeah,
And
he
I'm
did,
here.
and he's a man of his word, and we are here to talk to you about the latest Baz Luhrmann film starring Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. And we just got back from it, so our review is honestly going to be pretty fresh. Real quick, this is Nick put it on a great light earlier. It's a modern tragedy. It's the story about how this young, hopeful boy kind of gets brought down and used for everything that he's worth until it kills him. Which, if you know the story of Elvis, that's what this is. And I can already tell you, Nick and I have differing thoughts on this to a certain degree. One thing is for certain, Austin Butler is without a doubt the star of this film. He's the best part. He makes this film move. He gives it life, and I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, he's phenomenal in this movie. I just want to continue. I need to go back and watch this film. I loved it. I mean, and it's going to come across in this review. Make no mistakes. I thought that this film was, as you could tell, when Matt said we have differing views, I come into the standpoint of really freaking enjoying this movie a lot. And it's amazing to me.
Let's make no mistake. I did enjoy it. I just didn't enjoy it to the same extent you did. I felt there were issues, especially with pacing at times. But my biggest issue comes down to the story. To me, this didn't feel like an Elvis film. That's just my personal opinion. It felt like a film where the main character was Colonel Tom. I forget his last name. Nick probably.
Parker.
Thank you. Colonel Tom Barker, played by
Parker.
Tom Hanks. Yeah, I said Barker.
Parker.
Oh, Parker. Okay. But it felt like it was his film, and it's just like, and he's telling Elvis's side. And even though, like, ultimately they do show him to be this horrible person with his actions and his manipulations, to me it still felt more like, hey, this is what I did to Elvis, and I wanted more of seeing this story through Elvis's actions and eyes. And I get that the idea is we're getting this story while Colonel Tom Parker is on his deathbed. And it's the first half is a lot of voiceover and just Tom Hanks, Colonel Parker, just going over how they met and how he discovered Elvis and how they started off. But the movie hit its stride for me in the second act, where you got less of Colonel Parker and more of Austin Butler and his stage presence and the performance he gives, which is extremely top notch and makes me excited for his casting in the second Dune film. That's what really made the film work for me.
Yeah, a few parts that excuse me, a few parts that really stand out. It's the part with the comeback special, which is the Christmas special in the film. And it is the first time that we see Elvis really inventing his Vegas show. That's where this movie shines. That's where Austin Butler shines as Elvis, getting to see things through the mind of this creative man. Now, personally, not only did I went into this expecting more Tom Hanks than what we got. So I think that that's where our perspectives shift a little bit, because I wasn't expecting as much as we got when it came to the planning of these shows. And, I understand that this story is going to be basically how Elvis found his. I see this film as how Elvis found his own individuality, yet still was ransacked by the debts of this man who, you know, I don't think in popular culture it really is a determining factor as to how this man really did just take over his life. And I think that that story needed to be told because, there's always these theories around, and perhaps that moment at the end of the film where his plane takes off. It's really not spoilery. I mean, this film takes you through Elvis's life. I'll just leave it at that. Uh, Everybody has those theories about how Elvis is still alive and blah, 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 blah. I think that, you know, this really puts that truth behind the tragic life of Elvis Presley. How his manager, who got him into this business, really ended up taking him for granted, and it ended up being his downfall.
There's a line in the film early on where they talk about how Parker treated him like a pack mule, and you could see that, and that was one of the most heartbreaking things. I will say this, like Tom Hanks, his performance, and I'm shocked I'm saying this, took me out of it at times. Park, just from what I've heard, Parker was a weird guy. This was a weird performance from Tom Hanks, and it is what it is. Baz Luhrmann's style, however, works great with this film. There were a couple times where needle drops happened. I'm like, I don't know if I needed that, but okay. But just seeing how Elvis, and what a lot of people don't realize is how Elvis did use R&B and the blues to just be his launching pad. And this film really goes in and shows that, and it does respect the artists that came before him and inspired him, which I thought was great. And it's a fun ride. Nick, I know you said you didn't feel the runtime. There were points where I did, but overall, I'd agree with you.
Because it's a long film.
It's
almost 3 hours long. Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, there was a point towards the end for me where it really started to like feel it. And I'm like, but then you could tell, oh, we're doing this 1 year later. Okay, we're really about to end this. All right, I can live with that. I liked the little nod to the Jacksons taking residency in the International, which, and for what everybody knows in real life, is the Hilton. Maybe the Hiltons don't want their names associated with this. I can understand that. But it was, the overall journey was interesting. And the story, I tell people first and foremost, for me, the first thing we're going to grade a movie off of is its story. So for me, what I ended up giving it was 3.5 out of 5. This is basically all based off of Butler's performance and the story itself and Baz Luhrmann's style. Otherwise, this movie had some questionable moments personally, but that's me. And Nick?
I gave this film a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed this film. Rocket Man's my 5 out of 5. This film comes in a close second. I can see myself watching this. I love the style. It's going to get me back into listening to a lot of Elvis music. So if you're driving in your car with me, just beware. And, I thought that Austin Butler was unbelievable in this film. And that's why I loved it so much.
Fair. So for those people there's one other performance I want to shout out. That's Kelvin Harris Jr., who played BB King. For those people who don't know him, he was also the co-lead in Cyrano as Christian, and he was in Fred Hampton in the Trial of the Chicago Seven. Really dug his performance. But yeah, with that, be sure to check out my review for Lightyear. That is up now also. And signing off, I'm Matt.
I'm Nick.
And this was another Who Are They Real Review. See you next time.